Welcome to the Badlands. In this final episode of 2024, I asked a few of my past guests to join me for a very special year in review. So please welcome Celia Muddier, Marketing Director, Rachel King, Creative Director, Jay Dillamore, TV Producer Extraordinaire, and Damian McKeown, Chief Strategy Officer, and again, one of the smartest guys I've ever worked with. I can't thank you all enough for doing this. The Christmas special, even though I'm just not feeling remotely fucking Christmassy. But the Christmas special, that tinsel behind you, Rachel, is bringing me a lot of Christmas vibes. So look, thank you so much for doing this. I just thought it'd be super fun, potentially, and maybe interesting for people to have a bit of a retrospect from us Badlands folk. There's a lot of retrospects out in the world at the minute. There's a lot of kind of year in review stuff coming out, and I've seen a few agencies posting that kind of year in review, and it got me thinking, well, there are a lot of people job hunting, so I thought it might be interesting to do a bit of a job hunting Badlands year in review. What have we all experienced? What we've seen? Have we seen changes? What we experienced at the moment? What we learned? What we're going to apply to next year? Or are we all jacking in the towel, throwing in the towel? I don't know. So I think one by one, we've got our cameras on today, but we're not recording the video, but so we can see each other. So it's so nice to be able to see people, because normally I turn this off and I'm dealing with the dog and getting drinks and letting people in the doorway. And, but it's so nice to see everyone. So how is everyone? Celia, Rachel, Jay, Damien, how are you?
Very good and feeling festive. Unlike some.
Well, at least someone is.
I know. I thought this was going to be the Christmas party, but there's no drinks and nibbles, Jared.
Well, I did think about doing it a bit later in the day, so we could have had a vol au vent and
a mulled wine.
Yeah, shitty champagne that they bring to these things.
I could probably have a whiskey. I've got nothing to do today.
Why not?
I'm wrapping presents.
I've got to drive and pick up my son later. Otherwise, I would have had a mulled wine. But how are you, Rachel? How's things?
All good. Yeah, I think I got some consultancy, so I haven't got a job, but I am working. I suppose there's we might get into that. Two slightly different things there, I think.
I know, because that feels like a job to me.
Yeah, I think that we might get into. I think that's where I've got to do. That's my homework for next year. Right. Is what I'm doing. Just because it isn't a perm, I've got to get my head around the fact that actually working is working, and that is a job. And I think
it's a bit of a mindset.
One of the recent episodes, someone's, how do you introduce yourself? What do you do? And I think without a title, it feels quite tricky. But no, I have been fortunate to pick up some bits and pieces. I've got off fingers in a couple of pies, so that's kept me busy, which I think is the main thing that that's important to fill the days.
Yeah, nice. And Jay, how are you? Damien, how are you guys?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. I had a good meeting at Thames Television a few weeks ago. So I am waiting on the green light for a new show. If the green light happens, then I have a job on that show, which is fantastic.
Wow.
But,
replacing Greg Wallace.
No, it's not with it's festive Greg. No, it's not. But yeah, the further it goes into December, the more I'm sort of like, will it, won't it happen? Because if it doesn't get greenlit before, mid-December, then I think it might not happen till February. But yeah, feeling optimistic. Right. More optimistic.
All right, well, we'll dive into that in a second, because that might be the most fun thing. We're talking about a new TV show that you might work on. That might be cool.
It's not Laugh Out Loud Budgerigars.
I was going to say, is it the Budgies?
Did they finally got commissioned, no?
Yeah.
It's not that.
Damien, how are you, my friend?
Honestly, I am absolutely exhausted.
Right.
Is
that why you are in bed and the camera's not on? It's fine if you are, but
no, I'm at my desk. But this is my 14th week of being Jesus in a van for a cardinal. So I'm generally driving about 100 miles a night and almost delivering 1,000 kilos of shopping to anyone and everyone west of West London, all the way to Reading and Basingstoke and Virginia Waters, etc. Just to keep the groceries coming in, and at the same time I'm still hustling for work. So I've got a couple of brand positioning projects bubbling up, I've been applying for things that I'm still waiting to hear about, and generally still shouting at the world.
Whilst in your van.
Whilst in the van.
Yeah, listening to talk radio and daytime phone-in radio, just going mental.
Yeah.
It must be Christmas by now you've got on the radio, surely.
Sorry?
Have you got Heart Christmas on the radio on non-stop? How many times have you listened to Wham or whatever it is?
No, Rachel, that would kill me. I've got I've got a curated playlist
that's much better.
That keeps my spirits up.
Yeah, I would have listened to every podcast ever made if that was my idea. The phone-in radio stuff would drive me insane.
Yeah, you can't do it, Jared, because basically I've got a sat nav talking to me.
Oh, right, yeah.
And also a machine that monitors my driving that says things like, steady now.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well,
So the AI overlord is in your van going, no, Damien, slow down, otherwise you'll be deducted 2 credits from your day.
You're now patronised by our vans. That's amazing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Why are you driving so angry today, Damien? Because they fucking got ghosted again by some pricks. Sorry, I'm trying not to swear on the Christmas episode.
No. Yeah.
Celia, how are you?
Yes. Starting to run after the walk. So yeah, I suppose September, October time, I really hit the wall, and we'll go on to it anyway. But I think I started, what's the say? If you were dating people, you say you've kissed some frogs. So I think I went down some avenues that probably you've got to explore, but ultimately they weren't really me. So, and I'm having knee surgery next week. So by the time I hit January, I'm well positioned for full recovery, and I will be hitting that ground running. So
literally
poised for recovery is the best way of describing it.
Well, we might come back to kissing frogs because that might make for a fun episode and a great hashtag for when I post the episode. I'm looking for all those little things to improve listenership. Yeah, I think it's been a mad year. How long has everyone been in the Badlands now? I'll start. I'm nearly 18 months, right? So a year and a half.
Well,
I've been doing a little bit of bits and bats, some consultancy work for some friends who've got an agency and stuff, doing a little bit of brand work and a little bit of positioning work and a little bit of new biz stuff, but like drip feed stuff, like just, the odd day or two a week and maybe a couple of days a month. So, but weirdly, I stopped looking for a while. I found it was it was pissing me off so much. I was like, well, I'm just going to remove it from the equation. Maybe that will help, like not, from a stress and mental health point of view. I kind of stopped. And to the point where someone called me a couple of weeks ago, and I have no idea what it was. I was like, I'd totally forgotten that I'd applied for this thing. Do you know what I mean? It was one of those, that was months ago. So,
I think to be fair, that's what's from whether it's a recruiter, a headhunter, or direct. One thing that's blatantly overt to me is that the process is really taking a long time. I've got 5 live apps that went in end of August and early September, and I've had first and second interviews. I'm still in the running for them, but ultimately they've not closed off. So your head's still buzzing, going, "What if?" But when I spoke to the recruiter yesterday, it's just that's what they're seeing at the moment. Such long, elongated processes.
Isn't it weird? I think one by one. Just so everyone has a chance to kind of just quickly summarize their experience. And because I've spoken to you all a couple of months ago now. Damien, I think, was the last one I did. But even that was like 6-7 weeks ago, Damien. So I know there's been months have gone by since we've kind of all first spoken, and you're all kind of a few months in. So if everyone wants to say how long they've been, it doesn't matter if you don't. But what have you noticed? And what's been your biggest takeaway in the entirety of this timepiece? Because I think when I spoke to most people, they're at almost the start of it. Because I've been in it a long time, and I'd kind of found that people were. I wasn't really talking to people who were like 10 months, 12 months in, probably in that first 2-3 months. But then, I look back at some of those episodes and I'm like, oh, that was 6 months ago, 5 months ago with these people. So. Yeah, how have you all found it? Jay, why don't we start with you, mate? How have you found your time entirety?
My year in the Badlands. Well, I think mine's been sort of intrinsically tied to, my personal life as well. And I think you kind of forget how much time you spend and how much of yourself you put on what you do for a living and who you are. And I think, in some ways it's been a little bit enlightening because you have no choice but to separate those things. When you don't have work for so long, you have to go, well, who am I if I'm not a TV producer? What am I if I'm not a TV producer? And, that may sound a little bit wishy-washy, but to be honest, you have no choice but to kind of face that. And I suppose for me, like, I don't have kids, I don't have a wife, so like I get the luxury of being able to just rattle around my own skull about what I am, what I should be doing, and kind of that's what I've been doing. But I think, also it's having that time to go, well, I'm not only this thing, and realizing that, and then going, well, what else do I want, and should I be pursuing something else? I think that's probably my takeaway.
Right.
And I think also people are quite afraid of doing that because they may have spent, like me, spent over a decade pursuing my career and trying to build something. And, I think also, as much as we're told kind of, we're individuals and our own mental health, is important and all of those things. I think we'd all be lying if we said we weren't worried about what came out of our mouths or how we communicated to other people, what we thought about our jobs or what we thought about the industry. And I think really there probably just needs to be a bit more honesty, and people have to go, well, fuck it. You know what I mean? Like, it's, I'm a human being at the end of the day. And I have all the traits that go along with that. I might not always make the right decisions, but, what we do as work is to pay the bills and to make sure we can continue to put food on the table and those sorts of things. So, it's about separating those two, I suppose. And I'm still probably working through that. I'm not, haven't become some sort of like, haven't had a huge epiphany where I've kind of through that. But yeah, that's probably what I'm taking away from this year is that ability to look at life through a lens that isn't just what you do. Do you know what I mean?
It's hard to do because I think we're just so programmed and so conditioned, and equally then there's a little bit of Stockholm syndrome, right? You kind of miss the job title and it does form such a huge part of your identity. I think it was on an episode a couple of weeks ago, I think I admitted for a long time I was still saying, I work in advertising and I'm just looking for my next thing at the moment. Well, the truth was I hadn't for like 6 months or something. So then there was some of this summer, I was at a barbecue, friend of my son's parents thing. And, what do you do?
Yeah.
Nothing. It was the first time I was like, I don't do it. I don't work at the minute. I don't have a job.
Yeah.
And
it
felt quite nice. And you could see this person had and at first I thought maybe he thinks I'm really rich, and I'm like, no, I don't do anything, like.
Maybe I think maybe in those situations, especially when you're making like small talk at a birthday party or something, I bet that guy was like, oh, thank God, I don't have to ask him what he,
Yeah, what do you do? Yeah, I'm not interested.
Anything, you just let him off the hook. Nothing, mate.
Yeah, dude, we're only talking to each other because our kids are the same height.
Yeah,
that's the only reason we're here.
Yeah, let's not put each other through more.
Yeah. I tell you what, I don't care. I won't ask you what you do. So, but I think there's an ownership that you kind of have to grab a little bit with the out of work thing. So, Damien, what about yourself, fella?
Well, I mean, this isn't. I've had fallow periods all through my career for one reason or another, where I've had to look deep inside myself and go, where do I find my worth, my value, my purpose, my reason for being, and so I guess I built up some resilience and kind of I've gone through that kind of internal angst and exploration before, but this has been particularly difficult. And I suppose initially I was also because in the end work wasn't coming, and I just thought I can't just not make any money while I'm looking for work. And while we can pay for most things for various reasons, we needed some extra cash. So then I started doing the Ocado thing, and initially that was really fucking tough. I was thinking, hang on a minute, I've worked for 30 odd years. I'm brilliant at what I do. I've got all these skills and gifts, and here I am driving a bloody van, delivering people their shopping, and I'm walking into. And initially, I was going to very, very wealthy areas where people are living in £5-10 million houses. So that was really, really hard. And then I thought, well, you know what? Whatever they have, someone else has more.
Yes.
And whatever I have, someone else has got more or less, and all these things just don't matter. The thing that really, really matters is, how are my family, how are my kids and my wife and my friends, how am I fit and healthy? Am I looking after myself? And if someone wants to open a door and judge me, fuck them. That's what they bring. I know who I am. I know my value and my worth. And actually, it's been a really interesting experience. Most people are very kind and appreciative. And actually, some of the people I'm working with, there's a guy that turns up in an S-Class Mercedes to do Ocado delivering. There's a guy who kind of made all his money, but doesn't want to be lazy. There's another guy who works for an investment firm that they've diluted the shares so much, he's just having time off but wants to be busy. I'm working with ex-military. I'm working with people that moved out of the medical profession, all kinds of people. And I realised, like Jay was saying, we are not what we do. We are who we are and the values and principles that we stand for. So I approach this delivering shopping like I would if I was going into an advertising office. I'm professional. I be my best self. I'm diligent, courteous, and I really care about getting people their shopping on time.
Do you have massive opinions on the contents of their shopping? Are you saying this, you shouldn't be eating this crap? There's a lot of evidence, a lot of data pointing to what.
Well, there's a curious thing in terms of yes, there are some stereotypes in terms of. But I tell you what it is that people who love ice cream really love ice cream.
Right.
People who love fizzy drinks really fucking love fizzy drinks. It's serious addiction. And
you're putting together an awfully powerful piece of consumer research for the likes of P&G and Unilever and the various FMCG.
I've had a few revelations as well. I need to stop because there's 4 of us here. I actually saw someone had bought some dog ice cream yesterday.
Wow.
Which I never knew existed. That was a revelation.
And they don't have a dog. It's just weird, right?
But I did think of you, Jared.
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure my wife.
When you say dog ice cream, you do mean ice cream for dogs, not ice cream
made from. Yeah.
Yes, Jay. That would be and it was from Jude's who make ice cream for human beings. But I've had a few. I tell you what, the lives of others is infinitely fascinating.
Yeah.
And you never know who's going to open the door and how they're going to behave and what's behind the door, and and I've realised my instinct and intuition is finally home now, because someone can open the door and I go, okay, you need help,
right?
Or you're having a bad day, or whatever it is, you just get a feel for what's going on in people's lives, and you try and help them out.
Amazing. Well, yeah, because you'd mentioned to me, Damian, that you'd started doing that, and I think we agreed, it wasn't relevant to our first conversation that we put out, but I think there's elements of that. I know a few folk who are all in the same position as us who've been doing whatever it is they can to do, and I think I don't think anyone would look down on them weirdly. I think there's a weird self thing that you have about it. I certainly did, ego-wise, around some of the bits I was doing, but then, like you say, Tim, no one really cares. Outside of your family and as long as those people are happy and stuff, it does. I don't really care what anyone else thinks. So,
well, my cousin said to me, have you had friends or acquaintances treat you different or drop out of your circle? And I said, I don't have people like that in my life. I've never had people like that in my life who judge me for what I do. I mean, being in advertising is no better than doing anything else. It's just what I want to do.
No.
So, yeah, I'm not interested in engaging with people who think like that anyway.
Yeah, for sure. Rachel, you mentioned something in your little intro about the kind of change in your mindset from how you present yourself, and you've even said it on this call. So, what have you learned this year in your job hunting experience, and then how are you treating yourself as a result of this kind of time period?
Well, I think it builds on what the other guys have said. So, for some reason, and I think I've got to just sort of process it. But I have been working. So from the beginning of the year, I was made redundant.
Well, get off this podcast then.
I know. Well, I feel a bit of a fraud, but I feel, but that's how I've got to just see that. Like you say, that is the difference between having a job or a career or working, and I think that's where I've got to, and maybe just because I've sort of done it because I've been fortunate, to get my foot in the door. But I suppose my aim now is to do a bit more of the same. If I can get to the end of March and reflect, am I a sole trader? Is this working? At the minute, it feels like it's a stopgap. It's a fallback plan. It was. I haven't set up my own business because I think it can make a career. I never imagined I would. I've done it because I fell into it. But if, community started sort of from April. So if I can do a year, it's like, oh gosh, maybe, there's enough in the pipeline. Maybe that's the thing. And I will leave. I think what I just struggle with this, what's this official title and the sort of purpose of what I'm doing now, which feels like it's sort of just filling in the time while I'm waiting to get a perm job. But am I chasing the dream? And like you, I went through I'm not going to do it for a while because the perm job thing is not working for me. But then I've got this little voice in my head going, but what if today's the day? It's like the week you don't do the lottery ticket or whatever, whatever the way it is.
Yeah.
So I haven't really gone cold turkey with it. I have, I've kept just having a look and going, oh, well, I'll apply anyway. And, and I've sort of got to the stage, I think Chris might have posted something this week, I've got AI to write me a cover letter for AI to sift through. I'm like, catcher, will that work? I don't know. I'm just doing it as an experiment to see whether I can use the tech. But that's what I want to do. There's advantages to self-employment. I've done 100 things that I would never have done before, which is, made money selling stuff on Vinted. I've done volunteering. I've done charity stuff. I've put my house on with a location company. I've become an exam invigilator. So if I can walk up and down for £100 a day, or whatever it is, when school exams are on, I've done loads of things that I wouldn't have done, just strings to the bow. But and a bit of, so it's been a busy year. I've deliberately kept busy because I can't not do anything. It's not in my DNA. So that's the advantages, but the disadvantage is that niggle that I don't have the security. The job security is what I miss more than anything else. And that uncertainty and that sort of constant self-promotion. I take my hat off now to people who decide to be a freelancer and make that work, because there must always be a sense of what's next. How relaxed you are about that and how much you panic and when to panic. So it might just be that adjustment that I need to feel more comfortable with, knowing what's there and what happens if it isn't the end of the world. So I suppose it's been an experiment. It was never planned because I didn't know it was coming. So I've kind of made the best of what was a pretty, shitty start to the year. And I've been fortunate to what I've been part of and what I've been paid for. I still want to work in a greater, I suppose we're moving into next year now, but a greater variety of sectors. I've tried to kind of try to decouple myself from broadcast and media, but I keep getting pulled back. But you know what? That's where the cash is. Maybe that's where I'm going, and that's what I know. I'd like to do something in the States. I've talked to a few people out there, that's where the big money is. I think if you want to, even if it's a short-term thing, day rates are higher, some international experience. So I've got plans of how I'd like, if I could secure enough to feel like I could make it work, then I would take my foot off looking at the perm. But it's still there as the big unknown.
Isn't there something interesting about the notion that you still refer to, and I do it, I'm sure we all do, this idea of job safety in a full-time thing, when the reality is, look, we're all talking because we've all come from those.
But they don't. Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what I mean. It's not there. Take it away. Take it as an option.
I think a little bit of realization that there's no such thing across any sector at the minute in the UK and broader, I guess, for sure, based on a couple of conversations I've had. So I think the notion of, again, I go back to, it's almost, you're just slightly conditioned. And I do think there's personality-wise, again, I know people who've been perma-lancers, just freelance their entire career. And they're very different makeup to me, just in terms of their personality type. And I think it sounds like, Rachel, you've had to learn some of that.
I know. I think it's not natural. It's not naturally me, because I like to be a bit, not a control freak in a positive way. I feel like, but when that's taken away, then then I control whatever I want to do. We go, well, yeah, but I do. But then there's a lot of that I don't. I can control what I can do.
It's double-edged because weirdly, I think the realization I've had this year is, and not wanting to talk too much about the guys I've been working with on a consulting basis, but they're so reliant on one big client, these guys, that I've been saying to them from day one, you need more than just one thing. And weirdly, if you apply that to career, that's essentially we've been the victim of. We had one thing, which was we worked at the BBC, we worked at, and then all of a sudden, if that's taken away, you're in this position of no control. And weirdly, Rachel, you're slightly describing actually taking a lot more control of your future. Strangely, but it's such a head shift. I think Damien's taking control of his a bit more. Jay's been doing bits and bats. I know from our conversation that we had. Celia, you and I have been talking on text about retraining. Again, that's taking control. Yeah, because I think there's such a free fall moment that happens when you end up in the Badlands for whatever reason. That for me, it was that lack of control I had over my destiny in life, which took a while to really start to sit with and work on. Celia, how have you talked about the length of some of these things. Again, it's crazy that's 4 or 5 months for I remember when I've hired people, it's 4 days. It's like, we need someone, CVs, cool, get them in, start on Monday. It's like, if there's a need state, there's a need state. I can't understand why it takes so long.
Yeah, so my journey is pretty similar to everybody else's, that it's being comfortable in the space that you're in. And for me, it's having to have changed my mindset too. I finished my last permanent role back in December 2022. And prior to that, there's always a fixed formula, isn't it? It's your network, it's your recruiters, it's your headhunters, and your personality has got you through with conversations. And that's always been easy. So it was a bit of a shock to me come April this year when it was finishing fixed term contract. And I just got out the patter ready to start again and thought, actually, 5-6 weeks, it'll be great. I can find a new role. And actually, I've really, really struggled. Rachel's just mentioned AI. It's become that loss of being authentic of who you are. But actually, if you're going to convert that to a marketing term of brand, your personal brand, to the dirty, low part of the sales funnel in terms of performance keywords, that's exactly where we are in terms of the job search, that a personal brand doesn't mean a lot unless you've got cheerleaders and a strong network behind you. It's all the AI and the keywords, and therefore how you differentiate yourself. So for me, my journey's been about being really positive in April, thinking I can do this and it's great. And I know that I've got the drill, to then get into August to October going, my God, I'm being spun from different ways. And I really at that point probably started to explore things that probably weren't me. But I thought, actually, I needed to go on a journey and I had to learn about things. So really started to explore, not in terms of startups, because I've been there, but actually smaller businesses. And that made me realise, exactly to your point, that's just not me. I'm a medium-sized, larger organisation person. I am about the value of marketing, not the lower level of funds or just churning stuff out. And so there was areas that I explored that made me really go. I was only talking to someone in my network who's one of my cheerleaders who just said to me, this is about 6 weeks ago, what are you doing? Right. And I just thought, do you know what? I came away from that lunch meeting. Yeah, I had a cry in the car, but I thought she's absolutely right. I've lost it. I'm literally gone too spread all over the place, just trying to acknowledge it. So that's like where I've actually then got back in place. But yeah, my key lessons really, I've learned to explore the journey. I've kissed some frogs along the way, square pegs in round holes, not doing it anymore. I've explored the fractional work. Again, I don't think that's really me. I don't like being on my own, to be honest. I love working with others. And so for what I have enjoyed is really since September, October, I've got out there. Now I missed our drinks and our all together. I've been on quite a few round tables. I've been to events. I've seen people. I've seen the whites of their eyes. I haven't just been on screen. I've been at events. I've had a glass of wine in my hand. And, I've just really enjoyed what I love most about working, which is working with others and actually being a part of something and not being isolated. So for me, it's that isolation that's really got to me mentally, that actually you're not part of something. You can talk about what you were part of, but it's actually now you're not part of something. So it's been trying on that journey to try and be part of something along the way. So I've learned what I am good at and certainly the things that really I shouldn't go near. So that's where I'm sort of
I think learning what not to do is a big part of it. Like, it's just this notion of, I apply for this, this, and this, to feel like you've applied for some stuff. That's not the right algorithm. It's just not the right formula for it, right? It's I think you all know Richard Robinson, but so I recorded an episode with Richard a few weeks ago, and it's coming out on Thursday. Just in that sense of, to talk to Richard about, who is, Mr. Human LinkedIn and knows everyone, and his job is just connecting, right? So he talks about the need to be kind of hyper-focused and understands the fear attached to it in that, there's a need state that we all have as providers and, senior in, our family lives and things. But moving through that phase, Celia, of kind of throwing shit at a wall, I'll go for this. It's like, it's counterproductive in a weird way. It doesn't really help. Ultimately, you might get lucky with something, but no, it doesn't feel like it's the right strategy. And so Richard's episode, he talks at length about what you've been doing, essentially, Celia, being part of the scene and trying to get yourself out there. It's a fine line. It's hard to do. Yeah. And Richard's entire thing, he's all about making sure people like you are still getting asked and invited to the things, because
it's brilliant. Yeah,
crazy that you wouldn't be, because you're no longer working today when your opinion and point of view on things is still valid. So, but yeah, that'll come out on Thursday. And there's a lot for people to listen to on that. I think it's going to be super useful for a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, just touching on Richard, actually, that's one of the key things that, I do the Masters and the CMO program. So I'm one of his in-betweeners. And that was a great launch event a few weeks ago, where you were able to really know that you had a seat at the table and be part of that event. So it did come out of that quite buzzing, to be honest, of that evening. So yeah, it's those sort of things that really keep you, why are you in it? And you ask yourself the question, don't you? Do you still want this? Do you still want to do this? And actually going to things like that, you make me go, absolutely, I do. I enjoy what I do. I love what I do. And I will find it. I will find that dream job in the end.
Yeah, well, and I think talking about me for a second. I've reached the point where I'm genuinely as focused on the off ramp in the next 20 years as opposed as just trying to find my next thing. And that's just for me. I'm not saying everyone should do that at all, but that's where it's kind of a sweet spot at the moment. If something comes up, I'm like, I could go and do that right now. I'll go and do that. And if I can find a way to do that, plus look at the new thing and moving into the new thing, then that's my strategy for 25. I think there's been enough writing on the wall to suggest that for me, in my roles and the type of stuff I've done, I could get back in for sure. But it feels like I'd be in this situation again in 12, 24, I don't know, a certain amount of time. So I'm just very conscious of almost planning a bit further out for myself. And I just wondered if you guys had thought like that, if you had those thoughts about, well, do I look and become a train driver, a school teacher, a whatever, totally unrelated to what we've done for the last 20 years. Have you had those thoughts? Jay, have you had those thoughts?
Yeah, I at the beginning of the year, I mean, I had a few like the, say things come in threes. So I lost I finished my contract at my job that I was last in as a development producer, and then the relationship that I was in broke down, and then I had a physical accident where I broke my collarbone as well. So I literally had all that stuff come in a short amount of time, and then I had to go. I was staying with my girlfriend in London, so couldn't stay there. I went to recover from my broken collarbone with my parents down in West Sussex. And when I was down there and when I was recovered, I really did think, what else can I potentially do? And I was going to start a little gardening business and just get a van and go around and mow lawns and do that kind of stuff. And which, I still might. Who knows if it doesn't work out? Like, I still might. And I could be happy doing that. Like, I don't mind doing a bit of graft. Like, it's fine by me. So yeah, I am looking at all sorts of different things. I mean, I took an acting class I've been doing. But again, pursuing that isn't exactly the most stable thing either. I'm not sure that
I was going to say, you picked another profession where there's a lot of no's and rejections, right? Isn't it 90% rejection, the acting world?
Yeah, I think I'm used to that anyway from the development world, pitching ideas to channels and things like that. So, but yeah, to answer your question, absolutely, yeah. And I'm still looking at like other things. I think the thing you can get really like sort of caught up in is, we are also, as a society, we're also focused on money over everything. Do you know what I mean? Like, so it's when we look at jobs, we're not even going, well, that job might lead me to meet someone, or that job might lead me to have a new perspective on life. We go, how much are you going to fucking pay me? And that's fine. Like, that's what we're geared towards, isn't it? And actually, as Damian said, like, there's so much more to gain from these types of experiences, regardless of the amount of money that gets put in your bank account at the end of the month. There's really like a lot out there to do, and that is whether you're, working in landscaping or delivering shopping, or you're doing any of those things. Like, you'll meet people and you'll get an insight from that, probably more so than certainly more so than you will sitting in front of your laptop, which is probably what we all have had to do in terms of our job search. Maybe getting out there and just earning that bit of money and then meeting those new people is going to be far more beneficial than just in front of that laptop every day, driving yourself crazy because you're sending off CV after CV and you're not getting a reply. So I guess I would add that to it. But yeah, keep looking.
You must have been seen as a bit of a fraud at acting class when you come in with your Star Wars background and you kind of bring a feature films and stuff. Like, hang on, this ringer's come in.
I never had any dialogue. So, as much as my CV might look impressive, I haven't actually spoken in front of a camera. I just am in the background dressed weirdly, which I enjoy as well, whether it's being dressed as like a or a Star Wars person. It's great fun.
Honestly, the one upside, I think, to my Badlands experience has been just the sheer breadth of random people I've met.
Exactly.
It's just so weird. Like, it's just like I had such a ballfish view of my ad world that I'd had and it was a decent network and stuff. And then weirdly, this has forced me to become, the irony being in client services, personable and like, and I'm not the greatest of out and networking and stuff. I don't particularly like doing it. So you're kind of forced into doing this, and you learn to do it. So it's been a huge learning endeavor, that side of it for me. I'm fine with clients one-on-one and stuff, but then big room of strangers, it's like, oh God, who can be fucked talking to these people? But I've had to learn to do that. Damian, what you've obviously, you touched on some of the stuff that you've been learning about yourself. I guess as we move to like 2025, are people confident? Have you seen any movement? Have you seen, like, I know, Jay, you're waiting on something super specific. I think I'll start with my own thing again. I'm not super confident that it's massively going to change 180, degree, like from slow and just nightmarish to like, no, it's fine in January. I just can't see that happening. So for people listening, there might be some useful in terms of how are you all thinking about going into the new year? I know, Rachel, you touched on you giving yourself a bit of time for your sole trader type thing. Damian, Damian, what are you? Are you just kind of plugging away at multiple things and seeing what we're all waiting for something to drop, essentially. I mean, there's not much else to do, right?
I kind of, if I can answer it in two ways. One is just to nod back to the conversation we're having about, other options and stuff like that. And I think one of the things that time away from your kind of true vocation in terms of, employment, it also gives you an opportunity to think about what are your true obsessions and to follow those.
Yeah.
And I've used this time to really kind of give energy to those obsessions, which is my writing. And it's been really interesting where you go, how do I get through an 8-hour shift where I'm not really using my head that much? And that is to kind of just create it inside my head and then write it down when I get home, or write it down in the morning or the evening.
Oh, wow.
And continue to nourish your creative self or your soul or whatever you want to do. And I think, we've probably all been doing it in certain ways, but I think, however hard it gets, if you can hold on to those things and go, the things that I'm caring about, I'm still giving energy and time to, then when you're in the, in the shit, you still got that to hold on to. And I think looking at 2025, I really want to continue with giving time and energy to my writing. And at the same time, because I think like, we've all said that there was a moment in time where I just thought, you know what? There is no point chasing stuff that doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. I don't feel that I'm not getting responses. I've spoken to all my brilliant headhunters. It's dead out there. I know the score. Rather than pestering people, which is how I felt. Maybe I'm wrong. I felt rather than pestering people, I'm just going to let it go for a bit and then come back with some renewed energy and unabashed further, and go, where I can add value, how can I help you? So for me, there are some early signs of recovery at this time of year. There's a few things bubbling up.
Yeah.
And the word on the grapevine is that should continue, that, new business is picking up. Client confidence is improving as well. So I very much hope, that this December or January, I've got a couple of projects on, and then we're going to go from there. But just to finish my response, you know what? Given this last 6 months, if I could afford to walk away, I would.
Right. Yeah.
I've realised I can. It's one of the reasons I love this job and advertising is solving the intellectual problems, but it's also the creativity. And actually, I've committed so much to doing that on my own that I don't feel I need that prop.
Right.
I'll finish there because there's. I'm sure Rachel's got something to add about end of year in 2025.
Well, yeah, and I suppose I kind of just want to have that moment where I feel quite proud of what I've done, myself. I never, because it has been tough and I've got here on my own. Now I can say what I've done is of my own merit. So that is an advantage to self-employment. There is a bit of a self-congratulatory moment. You go, actually, this is what I've done and I'm proud of that. And I've got my house in order. So yes, Richard was my mentor, so I had his guidance, but I've also got a work portfolio done and I've overhauled my LinkedIn and I'm like, right, everything is lined up, ready to go. There's sort of no stone unturned in, like we said before, the things that you can control. And I have done things I've never done before. And I think that is probably what I want to continue doing. So more of the same. Well, maybe that, done the same thing for a long time. That doesn't necessarily, it's quite freeing when you go, I can do something else. Not necessarily completely different, pivot to something completely different, but moved. As long as I'm challenging myself to do something I haven't done before, and then I'll get a sense of achievement. And I think your point, Jay, about greed, right? This isn't. I get obsessed about day rates and what if I'm too expensive? What if I'm too cheap? And I don't want to be a greedy person. I'm not in it for the cash. Ultimately, I need to keep a roof over my head, and we've had the house valued, and we went through that awful cycle of what we're going to do. But then when you get over the panic of actually this is all I need, then you enjoy what you are doing. And I think that self-fulfillment piece is the most important thing for me. Am I doing what I want to be doing outside of work? So again, Damien, all these conversations connect up, right? I'm spending time in charity work, which I never did, right? I read to little kids. I've worked for the Ideas Foundation, that's a charity. I'm doing stuff with the Ealing Music Therapy. So all the things and passions I've got, I'm ticking those boxes. Never did it before. Never thought of anyone but myself. Never thought of anyone but the company. So I feel personal enrichment there is a real positive spin. It's just that, so for me, and then I've managed to pick up some work, and even those stints that I've been doing, they're not things that I've done before. I've not slotted back in. I've shape-shifted. I've learnt more, I think, in the last 3 months than I probably learnt in 30 years because I've done something different. I've put myself in an environment where I've taken the skills. It's everything that I'd hoped it would be, which is recognise what I can do and build on it. I can learn your sector, but let me bring my experience and my external overview. So the perfect match is just knowing that what happens when that runs out. I it's always what's next. And so if I can do one thing, it's enjoy it while it lasts. Otherwise, I'm always thinking what's around the corner. And I think we've all learned, you don't know. I came back in after Christmas leave last year, skipped into the office, lasted an hour, cleared my desk and left. So, you don't know what's around the corner.
Yeah.
So actually, that's a lesson for me because I know how I work. That on a good day, I've achieved, or I've spoken to people like Celia. You and I are very similar. I'm a people person, right? And I've said that from the get-go. I shall be the season of goodwill. I want to thank everyone who has given me their time in real life, or just over the course of the year. And I look back at those first when I reached out on LinkedIn, say, it was sort of slight desperation in the messages, like, and I don't want to beg, I don't want to be desperately asking people. I'm just to reframe all of that and get to the space where you're coming at it as it's exhausting on long term, but coming at it in a way that's more positive. And what are the opportunities here? We all know how to do it. So there's definitely a bit of momentum to take me forward. I need to stop looking further than into the future because that's the unknown, and I brace it the fact that the unknown might be great.
It might be great. That's the same, isn't it? I think one of the key things that we've just touched on anyway is actually when you first start the journey, you also overthink it too.
Yeah.
So you get to that certain piece where actually, and I think you'd say what you just said there, there's a few key things, Rachel, personal enrichment. I am absolutely a workhorse. I always have been. It's always been my biggest downfall, if anything, because I'm too focused. And I approach job search in the same way, which is I sat slaving in terms of the screen, trying to find it, networking, trying to do everything. And as you said, the personal enrichment, certain things happened personally, which actually made me take the foot off the accelerator. And actually, I will go now to the gym between 9 and 10:30 certain mornings. And I enjoy the fact that I've got time to smile at people. I enjoy the fact that I take time to talk. I talk to the lady on reception. I talk to people. Whereas normally it'd be, how quickly can I get back at 7 o'clock in the morning? Because actually I've got to prepare for a meeting that's going to start at 8 o'clock or 8:30. So I've learned to be really comfortable with that work-life balance and getting myself in check as well as the job search in check as well, because it did become all-consuming. It did become quite obsessive. I did become very frustrated with it around August, September, October time. And I think there's that, isn't it? Is actually be kind to yourself as well. And I know that's what people always say, but I can say that to somebody else, but I was never very good at it myself. And I think that, I've really learned to do that over the last few months and be comfortable in the space that I'm at, but still very driven. I'm still hardworking. I still want to be valued. I still want to give value to a role that I'm going to, but I've been kind in terms of how I approach it in the last few weeks and months.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like the being kind to yourself is probably the number one piece of advice I've given anyone. Like I'm in any position to give advice, but just don't beat yourself up. It's it's not personal, right? We're in this situation because of professional reasons, not personal things. It's not, so taking it professionally, not personally, has been a huge help for me. And then being kind to yourself is you have to be, right. I don't think, no one's been more critical of my period than myself, to myself, and it doesn't solve anything. So going the other way and being okay with it and looking after yourself is vital. This is supposed to be a year in a review and a Christmas special at the moment. I shoot myself in the fucking face special. I saw someone put out a thing the other day of, look at all the cool stuff we've done at this agency. And I was like, there's not that much cool stuff there, mate. But I just thought, one of the things I was going to ask everyone was, we kind of shift now from talking about this year and from a personal experience. But like, I've noticed that I've been less critical of work, of like campaigns that I've seen. I've been less kind of all that stuff that happened with Jaguar in the last couple of weeks. I was like, you self-entitled pricks who are weighing in on that stuff on LinkedIn. When you sat doing what we're doing now, trying to get back into work and stuff, and give you a sense of perspective on how you behave and how you are when you're at work and how important you think you are. I'm like, we're not at all. But I did think it'd be fun. Have you seen any work? Have you seen any campaigns this year that you thought, I wish I'd worked on that? As in, because we're not working.
I'm going to go. I will jump in because just in case someone else picks my example, right? Right. But I wanted to talk about the Waitrose Christmas ad,
right?
Because again, maybe that's just because I've never done advertising from a brand point of view. I've always been from the broadcast side, but I feel. And I'm a bit of a bar humbug, despite the slightly limp tinsel behind me. I force myself to be Christmassy. It's not naturally my favourite time of the year. So I don't really, normally the Christmas ads, they just leave me, they don't stir me in any shape or form. But what I thought was interesting was the art of storytelling and how they engaged, not just the fact that every single touch point and media space was bespoke. And so the months of planning, I just think that's when it works brilliantly. It isn't just one great big ad that was shot in July and put on the shelf. There was no stone unturned. And I saw something where they got the staff wearing T-shirts saying, "Oh, did Colin steal the pudding?" And I just loved the fact that the interactivity of, I don't think I can remember the last time an ad was that entertaining in its own right and sequential. And I actually was quite disappointed when they revealed it. I'm like, oh, you reveal it, there must be, maybe there's a twist, maybe there's another bit to come, I don't know. But keeping people talking and guessing is sort of clever and original. And I guess they just, somewhere along the line, it was a smart way of doing a Christmas campaign rather than, do we go for the emotion? Let everyone's got to find their space. For me, Waitrose found a new way forward, and it felt original for that. So and also because I just love the copywriting, I love the way it's shot, I love the casting. There's no part of it. It's almost like you forget the gluttony, which is the bit that I really dislike about Christmas. Hats off to them.
Yeah,
the only bit I've seen, which had no context of, the only bit I'd seen was the staff wearing the T-shirts.
Oh right, okay.
For a couple of weeks, I was like, why they're wearing those T-shirts.
Oh, no. And I did.
I haven't seen the TV ad. I hadn't seen any online. I hadn't seen anything other than
because they've got, they've done. It
felt like it was just in my local store. I thought maybe my local store, it was like a charity thing that they were doing or a bet. So I was like, that's no frame of reference for it.
No, it's by far my favourite. And so the T-shirts was one thing, and they had some stuff, special billboards,
right.
And they did the social content because they did it with the guys from Vicky McClure and that from Line of Duty, and so they kind of got them in spoof crime to try and solve it. Those spin-offs were so clever. Just when you think they can't do another bit of content, they did another one, and it was sort of super clever. And all the casted interviews, cut downs, hats off. That's my campaign of the year.
Nice.
And if I was to follow Rachel, believe me or not, we weren't in cahoots before we started. And I'm not necessarily pinching the Waitrose one, but I selected Christmas as well, mainly because we knew, Jared, that you really weren't interested in Christmas. So we changed the brief slightly. So my ad actually was Boots. So the Christmas makeover ad. Let's not go into the negativity. We're not going to go into that space. I just say people have views. But for me, it was actually the throwback of what I love about the Christmas ads of any brand, really, is the fact that when I was an account manager in a design agency, as Rachel said, getting dressed up in July, actually having snow around you, having Santas around you, having the fun, the energy and the life. And there was a lot that actually resonated with me in terms of actually how that was shot. Going back to why did they actually choose that angle? Yes, they were trying to be diverse, but actually 86% of Advantage Club card holders are women anyway. And most women, let's face it, the fact is the fact, women are laden with a lot of stuff for women, so for Christmas. So I just thought it captured the magical essence of Christmas. It was tongue-in-cheek, it was playful, it had loads of energy, lots of fun, and lots of glitter, really, that what Christmas is all about. So so that's what did it for me, really.
Nice. I haven't clearly haven't targeted me with that. I haven't seen that one either. Damian, James, what have, it doesn't have to be Christmas. Mine's not remotely Christmas. It can be anything.
Well, yeah,
have you seen anything? Because Damian's going to haven't seen anything good this year.
Yeah, I haven't been targeted on any of the Christmas stuff, really. I don't know. Yeah, the algorithm's not quite getting me, I guess. But I mean, I've seen the TV stuff, obviously. And also, I suppose I work slightly different. I'm sort of outside of advertising. So the thing that I watched really early in the year, actually, which was a feature documentary, which was a documentary about Jim Henson called Idea Man. And it does kind of tie into advertising, weirdly, because at the beginning, when Jim Henson started, obviously he's the creator of the Muppet Show and the Muppets. When he started out, actually, a lot of his Muppets and the puppets that he created were used in advertising in the States, and they kind of advertised everything from like cigarettes to oil for your car and all sorts. And they always, these adverts that you can see in this feature documentary are really funny, and obviously some of them haven't aged all that well, and it's sort of like a Punch and Judy situation where the puppet just, annihilating another puppet, but it is hilarious. So I loved that, but I loved the real creativity of that, and also watching that film, Jim Henson at the beginning, and this is obviously a story as old as time. He was a genius in what he was doing, and no one wanted a piece of it. Like, none of the American TV networks wanted to do the Muppet Show. They took it in and they were like, "What is this? What Muppets and people, like, you're out of your mind. It's crazy. It's never going to work." And so actually they had to come to the UK to create the show, which I wasn't aware of. So the Muppet Show was first created in the UK, and then it went on to become this complete phenomenon. It was just huge. Phenomenon.
I wonder what that says about the UK.
Yeah. So that would be one that I would recommend. Go and watch Jim Henson, Idea Man. It's a wicked documentary, really, really good. And can I give one that I think is just horrendous and a sign of...
I mean, that's what we do, right?
I know, Jared. I know you'll love this more. So now there is a show called Human versus Hamster, and it's
hang on, I'm just going to stream this.
It's in that same wheelhouse as Is It Cake, which you may or may not have heard of.
Oh, I loved that. Yeah.
Is It Cake? So Human versus Hamster, it does exactly what it says on the tin. There is a hamster that goes out through an obstacle course, and at the same time, a human being has to do the replicated obstacle course, which is essentially larger. So I honestly think with telly at the moment, we have these ideas that often come from Japan, and I love Japan, and I love the crazy ideas that come out of Japanese television. But I think we're really in this period in television where it's like, what's the craziest title we can do? What's the wildest idea? And it sort of stems a little bit through, The Masked Singer and stuff. Where can we go with huge, great big builds and set builds and kind of fantasy? And I suppose it's interesting, but they seem so much more singular in their approach. So it seems very much like something you might see on a TikTok or on an Instagram reel, and you'll go, "Oh, that's crazy," but you're done with it. I mean, how many times can I watch a human against a hamster and still be entertained by it? I'm not sure. So for me, it's like I feel like there's this move to less around the kind of longevity of old school formats, and this real kind of shock value of what's going to grab the headlines and be big for a year, 2 years, and then we can let it go. It doesn't matter. We can, we'll have made our money then. So I think that's the way the TV industry is looking more. It's like, what if it's a flash in the pan? Fine, as long as the flash is big enough. Do you know what I mean? Right. And so, I'm kind of looking to next year. And if I do certainly go back into development, which I hope I will, then that's probably how I'll tweak my mindset a bit. Like, the crazier the idea, maybe the better, I think.
And is that steady, buddy? Is that a result of linear TV, trying to create formats that are much more like YouTube related content and like online content, and the youth of today who are making stuff online that gets millions of people watching it, they don't have the same formula as the TV execs from 10, 15 years ago, right? They're not almost burdened by that.
Exactly.
And is it now, is it flipped, and is the TV world trying to copy the
I think so. I mean, I remember when the sort of, the real kind of golden era of YouTube and YouTube influencers and things was happening, and I was at NBC Universal at Helicopter, and we were looking at talent online, and it's interesting that actually, although a lot of people have come from being influencers and being in that social zone to making the transition to TV, it rarely works out. And we really haven't seen a great transition where we've had someone from socials go on to TV and be a huge, giant success. And, it's more so that like the TV talent pool now takes from the TV talent pool. So we're more likely to see someone from Love Island or from I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, or, one of the reality shows move into a role where they're a presenter or, right, doing a kind of quiz show or something like that, than we are seeing someone come from YouTube or from Instagram, as I say, or TikTok or whatever.
I guess that Mr. Beast guy is going to test that theory, isn't he, with all the Amazon stuff that he's doing at the moment?
Oh, is he going to Amazon? I wasn't. Yeah.
No, he's $100 million Amazon deal where they're making a Mr. Beast type show for Amazon Prime, basically. And he has complete ownership and control over it. Amazon have cleverly just gone, make it.
Sure. I mean,
the
thing is, it didn't even take anyone at Amazon to be clever, because he's already a huge, huge deal, isn't he? Like,
sorry. I mean, have all of this money and bring some of your followers to our platform. Essentially, is what they're doing, right? They're just buying eyeballs.
I'm sure there were money people at Amazon that did all the maths there and went, well, how much can we offer him and still, scrape a bit more? Or maybe they don't. Maybe they just want to bring him onto the platform. I mean, you're Amazon. Does it matter if you're making money? I think you've probably got a bit coming in, isn't it?
It'd be all right, wouldn't it?
Yeah, they'll be all right.
Damien, have you seen anything interesting this year that you thought, oh, they've smashed it, or that's a really kind of, it would have been nice to uncover that insight? Have you seen anything that you just think,
I have. I think there's two things that stood out. One was a cultural piece, nothing to do with Adland, and that is ASAP Rocky's Taylor Swift video.
Yeah, it was brilliant.
Which was just, I suppose, it was almost, what's the word I would use? Delirious, I suppose. In its kind of constant kind of flow through just wonderful, crazy, spectacular, idiosyncratic scenarios that kind of, you had to watch it again and again. And I think in terms of a piece of content that demanded repeated viewing, lyrically, he's very, very clever as well. And I think, there's so much in culture that puts what we do in Adland to shame. There's a complexity out there. It's not complicated, but there is a complexity and a consideration to the creative output. I suppose call it art that I think is woefully missing in some of the work we're putting out as Adfolk. And I think we owe it to culture to contribute to culture. I don't think we do that very much. And I think that ASAP Rocky is a fantastic benchmark about what an audience is prepared to do to engage with a piece of content, which is to give it time. because I think then what we see is that there's an assumption or a perception that we won't give time to content. I think Rachel's example is another good one where you have to give time to that. We were waiting for it, we were involved with it. The other thing I would say is I think what we put into culture is also stuff that can add to our sense of humanity. I think, whether we're in the broadcast, TV, or advertising or marketing world, we can contribute. And I don't mean that, in a kind of, we're all suddenly Pope Louis XIV or something. But I think, as human beings contributing to culture, we can add to a sense of what our humanity is. And I think we've witnessed the line between humans and deniers of humanity growing. And therefore, for me, any work that really starts from a place of human insight delivered in a way that is tender and magical and beautiful and insightful gets my thumbs up. And so Uncommon get my vote as the agency that is really delivering work with real emotional nuance. And there's two examples. One would be the Quaker ad. They did that, I think they ran in the US, which is just absolutely fucking gorgeous. And then the Christmas spot for JD Sport Family.
Oh, yeah.
And particularly personal to me, we have I'm mixed race. My kids are black. We live in a very multicultural area in London. We have a multicultural family. And my son, who's in his 30s now, I've got an 11-year-old granddaughter. He talks about family a lot to me, and I see it with his friends. His friends are family. His family is everything to him. And I think the creative director at Uncommon, the planners, everyone there really understood for that audience how to talk about, because what's important at Christmas? Family.
Yeah.
And I just think that it's just so gorgeous and filled with humanity, and they get my applause for best Christmas.
I mean, they're on a bit of a hot streak, aren't they, those guys? I'd love to sit in some of their presentations. I'm kind of intrigued as a suit how they're selling some of this stuff, because it's very different to everything else at the moment. I was talking to Damian, you remember Ed and Lee?
Yeah.
I was out with those guys not long ago, and we were talking about Uncommon, and Ed, being very Ed-like, was like, everyone's blown away by what they're doing. But then if you look at it, it's real old school, simple advertising. It's just real, it's beautiful art direction. It's real simple. All their outdoor BA stuff's just beautiful art direction with a simple line. Like, what they've done is uncomplicated everything. And weirdly now, everyone's looking at them like they've created fire for the first time. Like we're all cavemen. And these guys are genius. And Ed's point was, no, what they've done is just stripped it back to the basics that we require and appreciate, and that stands out these days. And yeah, I tend to agree, but I'm fascinated how they're doing it from I think, how do they get it through the door?
There's more to it than that. I think, but I would agree that their craft is
next level, right?
Very, very good. And I really care about craft. I think as a strategist, a planner in an agency, you stay the course. You don't just deliver the brief. I work with creatives, and I work with creatives through the creative process up to and including, final edits. And I'm very good around the work. And one of the reasons for that time I spent with creatives and in creative environments. And for me, nothing matters unless you get it right executionally. Everything can be destroyed, with poor craft, with bad editing, with but I think behind all of that is some very strong thinking and a belief, which is rooted in a empirical evidence, which is emotion sells. I mean, that's not new, but Uncommon are selling emotion better than everybody else. But then they're not doing a kind of, Adam and Eve sentimentality, John Lewis thing. Neil Young always said he was only going to ever write one sentimental song, and he did.
I think I agree with all of that, because I think it's their insights. I think their BA stuff, when the behaviours, when they did that campaign across the summer, where the idea of people taking their laptop on holiday, and that, the vision of people drop it, when that one was on the Caribbean island and she dropped her phone in, or that the idea that everybody needs a holiday which means you're not working. I think the human behaviour, and that's what I agree with you, Damien, the humanity and then the insight that they've got, that they execute brilliantly, but it's coming from a human truth, and that's why it connects so brilliantly.
Yeah.
Because and same as the Christmas one, which I agree, it's a slam dunk because it's true, it's authentic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just to following all of that, mine was a craft piece, and it was for Magnum Ice Cream, who used to be a client of mine, and it was their campaign they did last winter called Finding Summer. So I've worked on ice cream, and it's easy to do in summer. It's incredibly hard to talk about in winter around Europe. And the work that the Lola guys did out of Madrid, again, just the insight that someone had hit upon, and it was these beautiful outdoor, and they'd found these places around Madrid, Paris, and a couple of other European cities where there was just a slither of sunlight coming through, like winter sunlight coming through the dark city. And there was just people sat in this kind of tiny slither of sunlight in the kind of anticipation of spring and summer coming. And there was no ice cream in it. It wasn't about that. It was just about selling the emotion of having the ice cream in summer. And it was just the craft in them, fucking beautiful. The photography, the art direction and stuff. And having worked in that world, I was like, I'd have loved to have been involved in that, because, yeah, it was, selling ice cream without selling ice cream. They found a way to sell a memory.
Yeah.
And it was that's so powerful. And I guarantee when summer rolls around, that awareness level will be incredibly high.
I don't know though, Gerard. Seeing as dog ice cream is now becoming a big thing by the sounds of it, then I think you've found your niche that you can go back to.
Yeah.
Find the insight, dog insight.
Yeah.
I think the crafting, Damien, is the bit that I think it's the challenge for agencies and marketeers at the moment, from a production point of view and a cost point of view. It is the challenge, How do you retain those levels of high-end production in today's kind of ever-increasing throwaway world, when we're making shit for, like Jay said, for someone to look at for a second or two? There's a balance, right?
But, well, I mean, it's also just, if you think about it, it's just good economics as well. If you're going to spend a lot of money on in media, why would you allow something to be produced that's mediocre? I mean, it isn't about. Yeah. It shouldn't just be about efficiency. It's got to be about effectiveness. So why put something into culture that costs you a lot of money that you haven't given time and care to? It on a rational level, it does not make sense.
Yeah.
But I think, good clients and good agencies go, if we're going to do this, there's a proper way of doing it, which requires time, resource, good budgets, and you put something that's beautiful out into the world.
No, I couldn't agree more. This is turning into the Uncommon Appreciation episode, but I've been reliably informed that
I mean, that there are. I just think they are one of the best examples. But I mean, I think the idea that emotion sells has been around for since the Feldwick and Les Benet piece, the IPA analysis. So they're not the only ones talking about it, but it's just
they're doing it well.
Best in class examples.
I couldn't agree more.
And to be fair to anyone else that's listening, there are a load of agencies doing some fantastic work. But we don't have time to talk about that.
No, and like we see on LinkedIn, no one really cares. I don't think we should be saying these things. Yeah. I think the Jaguar thing's been hilarious now. Just kind of watching that from the outside. It's been hilarious. So look, I think we'll start to wrap up. I guess from an outlook point of view, I know we've all briefly mentioned it. My outlook of 2025, I do think we're going to, I personally have seen a little bit of an improvement, weirdly, around this time of year, which is not normal. So I think there's a sense of, it feels like there's been enough stagnation to naturally need for change to happen next year. I don't think, there seems to be a sense of something growing, something bubbling away for 2025. And this year there were such big things that a lot of global things were waiting to happen. American elections, British elections. They're just these global things that do shape the economies and do shape a lot of external factors that influence, the day-to-day decision-making of people on the ground. As much as you don't like to think it does, it does. So I think now some of those things are settled. I think people are going into the next 4 years in the UK with a bit of clarity around the budget and things, good or bad, whatever you think of it is irrelevant. At least there's a thing that you can plan around. So I think businesses will probably start to make some movement next year of developing new products and services. And, for each of us, that would be good news from people needed to help talk about them and promote them and do things for them interestingly. Jay, from a TV point of view, are you quietly confident that is there some good new shows coming out next year, Jay? Because I've run out of shows. Do you know of anything cool coming out next year, 2025?
Well, I know of something that I might be working on in casting, but can't say anything, unfortunately. I'm full secrecy on that one, but hopefully that might start casting in January.
Nice.
Apart from that, not too sure, but I'm sure there'll be plenty on screens, no doubt.
Well, I have to, if I may interject, we've got Severance Season 2 coming back, which is very pertinent to us and your few listeners, Jared, because, of course, it's about the dynamic between our working lives and our personal lives, and the innies and the outies, the kind of in-work and the out-of-work persona and personality.
Is that is that on Apple TV, that one?
Apple TV, yeah. And it's directed by, the actor who was in Zoolander. What's his face? Jay, help me out.
Ben
Stiller. Ben Stiller directs it, and it's fantastic. It's beautiful. It's intelligent. And if no one's watched it, I highly recommend you watch season 1 over Christmas, ready for season 2 in January.
Well, I'm torn between Human versus Hamster or Severance season 2. So
I'm starting with the hamsters, 100%.
Good choice. Yeah, I'm going to start with the hamsters. Celia, Rachel, any prediction for 25 for you guys in your worlds?
I think we could have a new film, couldn't we? Back to the Future again. So I think for me, exactly what you just said, there's always going to be a need for marketing, but what is marketing? And therefore, what does that mean for our industry? And I think that's been a key question this year with every piece of content that's on LinkedIn that's either a positive or a negative. It's what is marketing? What is marketing in organisations? But facts are the facts that companies need to grow and customers' needs need to be met. And actually, transformation of legacy businesses needs to happen for them to survive. So I am hopeful that Back to the Future will be the key thing in terms of next year. I think there just needs to be some courage to invest, which, as you said, on that backdrop of what we've had politically, economically, globally and domestically, then it's a challenge. Yeah. But actually, hopefully there'll be a commitment to say, we've held water, we've reduced our organisation structures, we've stripped out senior players, but now we need that experience. So forget whether we're old, aged, female, white, whatever it is, hopefully the senior experience will be needed to ensure that they get back to where they need to be. And actually the big thing for me is I just really hope respect comes back in too. It's been a real tough year, I think, in terms of people feeling valued. The normal world that we've had has taken a hit in terms of being respected, and therefore you're feeling valued. So hopefully that overhaul will come as we go into 2024, and that's 25 even. That was my soapbox. But hopefully it's Back to the Future.
Anything to add, Rachel?
No, not really. I think just keeping the faith and the hope that trust in the universe that good things happen to good people and karma and all those things. So I think we've sort of covered it all It's another year. It's that sort of moment of turning it over. It's not even resolutions. Although I would ask that recruiters or anyone, that their New Year's resolution is to give up ghosting, because as we know, that's on a human level, that should be absolutely the top of everybody's list. Because, like we say, human interaction is really important, and yet it's also it seems to be the one thing that's consistently either hard to get in terms of people, or even just to get feedback and stuff. So I would make a campaign, that, and still the Easy Apply campaign, of course. But I was going to say, just the acknowledgement of existence of another human being at the end of every application would be an ask.
100%.
I can agree more. Agree more.
When I think about that question about 2025, I'm reminded of passage I read recently by Schopenhauer, who talks about how we're always living in expectations of better things, but while at the same time we kind of repent and long to have the past back again. And I think there's this idea that we look upon the present as something to be put up with while it lasts, while we are on our way towards a goal, and we forget that actually the thing that's important is enjoying the moment and the life we're living now. So however much we yearn for how it used to be, how much we think about what we want it to be, if we don't enjoy our life right now, we're going to look back in the future and go, we missed it. And I think
100%.
It's difficult because, things have changed for us, security, money, self-worth, etc., etc. But I think for, while we look at 2025, we've also got to remember, be in the moment and try and enjoy those while we're in pursuit of, our goals, our dreams, our desires, or whatever. But just to be thinking about, that was great, let's hope it's better, and missing out on the moment is kind of,
Amen. Yeah.
I was going to say that's the perfect ending. I think, Damian. Thank you.
I can that one, Damian.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't say it better. I think I can't thank you all enough for your time this morning. I really appreciate it. I think there's been a lot of learning.
Christmas, everyone, one and all.
I was going to say, now it's past midday. We can surely open the port or whatever.
You can find.
I regret adding a Christmas thing to this. I regret adding a Christmas thing to it. I think everyone learns a lot about themselves when you go through hard times, and I think I've learned that made of quite stern stuff. And everyone has the dark days, the shitty days, but I think weirdly there's a thing that I'd like people to understand when they're looking at employing people. People who've gone through this Badlands period like a long time will be the greatest employee they could bring in, because there's this renewed sense of like, right, I'm working really, I've taken stuff for granted so much in my life and career, and weirdly this kind of this time to introspect and look has been super valuable. So I think whatever we all do next, I know we'll all put our heart and soul into it. And yeah, I think I'm looking forward to 25, but I Damian, you said the thing there that is my biggest learning about looking after today and not forgetting today. And you've only got to turn on the news to see there are people way more unfortunate than we are in this country. In other countries, we're all in pretty, we're all healthy. I think just starting with that, it's like 25 is going to be great. If you keep that, keep your health, then everything else you can layer on top of for the sake of layering it on. I can't thank you all enough for your time. I love knowing you all now individually, and every single person I've chatted to has been incredible. So thank you for agreeing to do this one today. And I wish you all the best for 25 and have a lovely Christmas and all that stuff. I think that's what you say at work, isn't it? When you're just about to end the year, you have a great Christmas. And,
can we open the Secret Santas now?
We should have done Secret Santa. Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Jared, and thanks for doing the podcast. I think the fact that you brought together these people, I think, that we wouldn't be here without you. So there's a little moment of acknowledgement.
Oh, that's very sweet.
Thanks, Jared.
Yeah, thank you.
No, I appreciate it. All right, guys, just stay on the line a second though, because the same rules apply as when we've done them before.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.